3 weeks after the trip to Los Angeles, our lives began to change in very small ways, but very clearly. Before, Emery and I were almost by each other's side every day. But now his phone rang more often. Emails from the record label, messages from a new manager, video calls with musicians in Los Angeles. I started to see Emery getting busier. Not the normal kind of busy. It was the kind of busy that belonged to someone who had just seen a huge door swing open right in front of him. One April evening, I went to his music studio. The door was slightly ajar. I heard Emery on the phone. "Yes, I can fly down next weekend." He paced back and forth across the room. "I understand." "No, I'm ready to try." I stood outside the door, not trying to eavesdrop, but his voice carried clearly. "If I sign the contract, I can move to LA this summer." I felt my chest tighten a little. Emery hung up. I knocked lightly. He turned around. "Hey!" The familiar smile appeared, but this time it carried a hint of tension. "You heard everything, didn't you?" he asked. "Not all of it." I stepped inside. "But I can guess." Emery dropped into the chair. He sighed. "They really want to sign me." My heart skipped a beat. "Emery, that's amazing." "Yeah." But he wasn't smiling. "Why do you look like you're about to fail a test?" I asked. Emery stared at the floor. "Because signing that contract means I have to move to LA for at least a year." The room fell silent. I had known this moment would come, but hearing it out loud still hit me. "Just a year?" I asked. "At least." Emery looked at me. "It could be longer." We sat in the studio for a long time without saying anything. Finally, I broke the silence. "Are you going to sign?" Emery looked at me. "What do you think?" "I think you have to." "Why?" "Because it's your dream." He stayed quiet for a few seconds, then asked, "What about us?" That question was harder to answer than anything else. I sat down in the chair across from him. "We can do long distance." Emery frowned. "You think it's easy?" "No." "But it's not impossible." He gave a small smile. "Callan, LA is almost 400 miles away." "I know. I'll be busy." "So will I." Emery looked straight at me. "Do you really believe we can make it work?" I didn't answer right away. I only knew one thing. If I said no, I would be the person holding Emery back. And I refused to be that person. So I said, "We'll try." Emery looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "Okay." That June, Emery signed with the label. Not a major one, just an indie label. But for a freshman, it felt almost impossible. The night he signed, we celebrated with a few friends at a small bar near campus. Everyone raised their glasses. "Sing for us when you're famous." Emery laughed. "I'm still just a regular guy." But I could see it. He had already started to change, just a little. Not in a bad way. Just, his world was getting bigger. 1 week before Emery moved to Los Angeles, we went back to the lake on campus. The exact spot where we had our first kiss. That night the wind was cold. We sat on the grass. Neither of us spoke much. Finally Emery broke the silence. "I'm scared." "You say that a lot," I said. "Yeah." He smiled faintly. "But this time it's real." "Why?" "Because if I go, everything might change." "I know." Emery turned to face me. "Callan?" "Yeah." "Have you ever thought we're betting too much?" I looked out at the lake. The lights shimmered on the water. "Yes. And I still want to play." Emery smiled. "You really like that word, huh?" "I learned it from you." He was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I'm going to miss you." "You're only going to LA." "Yeah." Emery shifted closer. "But I'm still going to miss you." Before I could answer, he kissed me. This kiss was different from the first one. Deeper, slower, like both of us knew we were stepping into a new chapter. A chapter that wouldn't be easy. The day Emery left California for Los Angeles, I drove him to the airport. We stood near security. The air was filled with announcements and the sound of rolling suitcases. Emery hugged me so tightly. "I'll call you every day." "I know. I'm serious." "So am I." He smiled. "You have to come visit me in LA." Definitely. An announcement sounded. Emery's flight was boarding. He sighed. Okay. This is it. I nodded. Emery looked at me one last time. Callan? Yeah. I love you. I almost forgot how to breathe. It was the first time he had ever said it. I love you too, I answered. Emery smiled. Then he turned and walked through security. I stood there watching until he disappeared into the crowd. At that moment I thought we had passed the first test. Long distance, careers. But I had no idea. Los Angeles would change Emery in ways I could never have imagined. And 1 year later, we would face the biggest bet of our lives. The first 3 months after Emery moved to Los Angeles, everything went better than I expected. We video called almost every night. Sometimes just a few minutes. Sometimes for hours. Emery usually called from the studio, or from the tiny apartment the label had rented for him. It had 1 bedroom, an old couch, and a balcony overlooking the freeway. Not very romantic, Emery said once. I like it, I replied. Why? Because it's where you're living your dream. Emery smiled. You always know exactly what to say to make me feel important. Because you are. Meanwhile, my life at school went on. I became a junior. I was now the assistant editor of the culture section for the student newspaper. Classes got heavier. But every evening, I made time for Emery. There were nights we just left the call open while we worked. He wrote music. I wrote articles. Every now and then one of us would glance at the screen, smile, and keep working. The 400-mile distance suddenly felt smaller. That November, Emery released his first single. A song called Silver Nights. It wasn't a huge hit, but it was enough for a few music blogs to notice. I remember the night it dropped. Emery video called me at 1 a.m. Callan, he was practically shouting. My song is on Spotify. I smiled. I'm listening right now. Really? Yeah. I turned up the speaker on my laptop. Emery's voice filled my dorm room. Felt surreal. The person I loved. His voice. Now existing on the internet where thousands of people could hear it. What do you think? Emery asked. I think you're going to be famous. Don't say that. Why not? Because if it actually happens. Emery paused. What? Everything gets complicated. About 6 months after Emery moved to LA, I started to feel that complication. At first, it was just small changes. Replies came slower. Video calls got shorter. Phrases like, I have to stay late at the studio tonight. I have a meeting with my manager. I'll call you later. I understood. I really did. He was building a career. But sometimes, the distance between us felt bigger than 400 miles. One February evening, Emery called. Not video, just a regular call. His voice sounded tired. Callan? Yeah. I have news. Good or bad? Both. My stomach tightened. Okay. Tell me. I got invited to join a small tour with an indie band. Holy shit. Yeah. It's amazing. It is. And the bad news? Emery was quiet for a few seconds. The tour lasts 3 months. And we're going all over the country. Callan, I might not be back in California for a while. I stared at the ceiling of my dorm. 3 months. No visits. No weekend trips. Just phone calls. You want to go, don't you? I asked. Yeah. His voice was small. I really want to. I closed my eyes for a second. Then said, Then you should go. Emery let out a breath. I knew you'd say that. The tour started in March. And that was when I truly understood how hard long distance could be. Emery was constantly moving. Chicago, Austin, Denver, Seattle. Some days he texted at 3 a.m. because it was the only time he was free. Some days we didn't talk at all. The first time since we started dating. A week passed. Then 2. I started to feel like I was just a spectator in Emery's life. I followed him on Instagram. Videos of him singing on stage. Photos with the band. Comments from fans. Meanwhile, my life still revolved around classes and writing. 2 completely different worlds. One night around 2 a.m., I got a video call from Emery. He was in a hotel room, hair wet, oversized t-shirt. "Hey," he said. "Hey." We looked at each other for a few seconds. Then Emery asked, "You okay?" "Yeah." "You said yeah like you're not." I smiled weakly. "Maybe." Emery leaned back against the bed. "Callan." "Yeah. I know this time is hard. It's fine." "No, it's not." He looked at me. "I'm scared I'm hurting you." I shook my head. "You're just chasing your dream. But that dream is pulling me away from you." The words left the room silent. Finally I said, "We'll get through it." Emery looked at me longer. "You always believe in us more than I do." "Maybe." He sighed. "Callan, if one day you feel like this bet isn't worth it anymore, don't say that." "No, listen." Emery stared straight into my eyes through the screen. "You have to tell me." I didn't answer right away, because deep down, I was starting to wonder if we really were betting too much. But at that moment I still didn't know. The real test hadn't even begun yet, because during that tour, Emery would meet someone who would make me think for the first time that I might lose him forever. His name was Julian. I knew his name before I knew what he looked like, because Emery mentioned him during a video call. It was somewhere in the middle of the tour. Emery was in Austin, Texas. He called me from backstage. The sound was noisy. I could hear the crowd outside. "Callan," Emery said, breathing fast. "I'm about to go on. Good luck. I have to introduce you to someone." Emery turned the camera. A tall guy with black hair, wearing a leather jacket, holding a guitar. "This is Julian," Emery said. "He's the lead guitarist." Julian waved. "Hey." His voice was deep, confident. "You're Callan, right?" Julian asked. I was a little surprised. "Yeah." Emery grinned. "I talk about you all the time." Julian smirked. "I know." There was nothing suspicious about that conversation. Really, there wasn't. Just two musicians on the same tour. But I don't know why. Something in Julian's eyes made me uneasy. In the weeks that followed, Emery started mentioning Julian a lot. Julian helped me fix the guitar part in the new song. Julian knows this amazing producer in Brooklyn. Julian said I should try writing in a different style. I tried not to overthink it. They work together every day after all. But one evening, I opened Instagram and saw a photo. Emery and Julian, sitting on the roof of the tour van, laughing. The comments below were full of fans. "You two look so good together. Collab when? The chemistry is insane." I stared at that photo longer than I should have. 2 weeks later, Emery video called me. He was in a hotel in Chicago. Looked exhausted. "How's the tour?" I asked. "Crazy." He smiled. "But good." We talked for a few minutes about normal things. Then Emery suddenly asked, "Did you see the photo I posted yesterday?" I knew he meant the one with Julian. "Yeah. Fans are shipping me with Julian." He laughed lightly. "The internet is so weird." I tried to laugh too. "Yeah." But Emery looked at me more closely. "Are you jealous?" "No." The answer came too fast. Emery tilted his head. "Callan." "What?" "You're terrible at lying." I exhaled. "Maybe a little." He smiled. "Julian is just a friend. Close friend. We've only known each other a few months." "I know." Emery was quiet for a few seconds, then said, "You know I love you, right?" I nodded. "Yeah." And at that moment I really believed it. The tour ended at the beginning of summer. After 3 months apart, Emery finally came back to California for a few days before returning to Los Angeles. We met at the airport. I almost didn't recognize him at first. Emery looked different. Hair longer, skin tanned, a couple of small new tattoos on his arm. But when he saw me, the same smile appeared. "Callan." We hugged right there in the middle of the airport. For a long time. "Finally," Emery whispered. "Yeah." I breathed in his familiar cologne. 3 months apart. 3 months only through a screen. That moment reminded me how much I had missed him. We rented a small cabin near the beach for the weekend. No internet. No phones. Just the two of us. And the ocean. The first evening we sat on the porch watching the waves. Emery brought his guitar. He played a few new songs. One of them was very different. Darker. Stronger. Who helped you write this? I asked. Emery hesitated. Julian. I nodded. Sounds good. Emery put the guitar down. You don't like him. I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. I looked out at the sea. Maybe I'm just not used to it. Not used to me having other important people in my life? The question had a sharp edge. I turned to him. It's not that. Then what is it? Took me a few seconds to find the words. Emery. Before, your world was small. Just school. Music. And me. Emery stayed quiet. Now your world is bigger. Much bigger. He said softly. And you're scared you're no longer at the center. Those words hit the exact weak spot inside me. I didn't answer. Emery moved closer. Took my hand. Callan. Yeah. I don't want to lose you. I looked at him. But I don't want to stop either. The sea wind blew stronger. I understood. I really did. But deep inside there was still a fear. That one day, Emery would have to choose. Between his dream and me. That night, when we lay beside each other in the small cabin, Emery held me very tightly, as if he wanted to prove he was still here. But I didn't know. Somewhere inside, a small distance had already started to form, and I wasn't sure whether our love would be enough to fill it. That fall I entered my senior year. Time passed faster than I expected. 4 years earlier I had been a sophomore working part-time at the library. Now I was the editor-in-chief of the student newspaper. The job was demanding. Deadlines never stopped. But there was one thing that excited me. A newspaper in New York had accepted me for their post-graduation internship program. For the first time in years. My dream was also getting closer. I called Emery the moment I got the email. He was in Los Angeles. Callan, Emery almost shouted. You're really going to New York? Yeah. I'm so proud of you. I smiled. Sounds like what I used to say to you a few years ago. Emery was quiet for a second. We're catching up to each other. What do you mean? You're chasing journalism. I'm chasing music. Both of us are moving forward. I didn't say what I was really thinking, but in two different directions. That year Emery's career kept growing. Not exploding into superstardom, but enough that he started to have real fans. Shows at small clubs in LA. Interviews on music blogs. And Julian was still there. The two of them started writing music together more often. One evening I video called Emery. He was in the studio. Julian was there too. Hey Callan, Julian said when he saw me on screen. Hey, Emery was adjusting the microphone. I'm about to record vocals. I'll call you back. But before he hung up, I heard Julian say, we should keep the harmony the same as last time. Emery nodded. Yeah. They looked at each other. Just for a second. Nothing obvious. But I still felt something. In February the following year, I moved to New York. The city was exactly what I had imagined. Big, loud, never sleeping. The studio apartment I rented in Brooklyn was tiny. The window looked out at the train tracks. Every time a train passed, the whole room shook. But I loved it, because it was my beginning. The distance between me and Emery was now even greater. Not 400 miles, but the entire country. We still talked, but less. Both our schedules were insane. Some weeks we only sent a few short texts. Good luck with the show. Good luck with the article. Miss you. But the love started to feel different. Not gone. Just thinner. One May evening I was working at the newspaper office in Manhattan when my phone buzzed. Emery calling. Hey, I said. His voice sounded strange. Callan? Can you talk? Yeah. I need to say this in person. My heart started beating faster. What is it? Emery was silent for a few seconds, then said, Julian and I just got invited to join a European tour. Wow. It's a huge opportunity. Congratulations. But Emery wasn't finished. The tour lasts 6 months. The room around me seemed to go quiet. 6 months. In Europe. Not LA. Not California. Not somewhere I could fly to on weekends. I leaned back in my chair. When? Summer. Callan. I know what you're going to say. You should go. Emery exhaled. You always say that. Because it's true. But this time, those words hurt more than usual. 3 weeks before Emery flew to Europe, I flew to Los Angeles to see him. We walked along Santa Monica Beach. The sunset burned red. Waves rolled gently. We walked barefoot on the sand. Neither of us said much. Finally, Emery stopped. Callan. Yeah. We've been doing this. For almost 5 years now. Yeah. Long distance. I know. Emery looked at me. Have you ever gotten tired? The question made me pause. I thought for a few seconds. Yes. Emery nodded. Me too. The sea wind blew between us. But I still love you, he said. I still love you too. A silence. Then Emery said the words that made my heart feel heavy. But sometimes, love isn't the only thing you need. At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. But 6 months later, I would understand it very clearly. Because during that European tour, there would be one night, one call, one truth. And for the first time in nearly a decade, Emery and I would stand at the edge of losing everything.